Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Now we enter the stage of our liturgical service where we get to discuss our message. And the messages in the Torah are so powerful. There's always something that we can learn how to apply to our lives, how to take it. Each and every day we go through struggles. We struggles, family, with friends, people at work, and we don't always know how to handle things. But one of the things about reading the Torah, and after so many years of reading it, is I'm learning it's a slow process. It's a halacha, as I said, it's a walk with our God. And he has a way of speaking to us, either directly to our thoughts, an idea that comes to us when we're reading the words, through friends, people who care about us, who are not afraid to tell us the truth about our behavior. And it was a wonderful message for me. I know you did a study this week, Mauricio. Can you expand on some of the things that I was saying in the message?
Well, the one of the discussions on Tuesday was regarding the when is the judgment day or the turning day. It says that we need to afflict our souls. Okay, so we were discussing that today's rabbis um, has they have said that it's important to make not eating that day
A
in
fast.
order to afflict a fast, yes, in order to afflict our soul.
Okay.
But as I mentioned on Tuesday, the problem is that that is not afflict your soul, that is afflict your body.
Right.
Okay,
That's very true.
yeah. And there is something behind, honestly. I do fast, but it's because when you are weak, well, your body start to feel weak, then you give chance to the spirituality to come. Okay, but but not only fast. I mean, it's not enough. In the portion obviously is because on Daniel it says in most of the prophets when they have an encounter with God, they 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 realize that their bodies were weak. It says that, for example, Daniel, it says I almost fainted, and I felt so weak. My knees were so weak, so he cannot stand up. In those moments, they receive the instruction from God. Okay, probably that's why they said, okay, make a fast in order to feel your body weak, and then probably you can get yeah the instruction from God, a message from God. But but honestly, that is not enough because to afflict our soul is much deeper. Okay, I don't know if somebody has felt uh, in their lives sometimes afflicted, not regarding spirituality, I mean afflicted. For example, I remember when I was a kid, uh, I felt a little bit of affliction when the bullets of the guns were on my head during the war in El Salvador.
Would do it.
Yeah, so I can hear some bullets falling on the roof of my house. So and you can hear, and then suddenly you can see an airplane bombing some mountain like 1 kilometer from my home. So you can hear the bombs, and you can see the planes, and you can see the red lights from when they were shooting. Okay, so on those days, I remember that that was an affliction. I afflict myself a lot. And that is not really about fear. It's not to have fear, because you can have fear, but you are not afflicted. So to the affliction also comes from another uh, example. I remember that one day I was working into a clothes store, and a lady just leave their the her I don't know, bolsa, cartera,
Her purse.
the the purse, yes, the purse she left on a cart, and I picked up, and I send it to the vault. I never opened even the the purse, because I said the person interested to come, she will come, and I will open it before her. Okay, so and and I remember that after 2 or 3 hours, a lady came running. Okay, her face was honestly very white. Okay, and afflicted, eager, uh, with anxiety and desperation,
Right.
and she come, and she start to ask, have anybody found a purse? And I remember I was in charge on that moment of the store, and I asked her, uh, can you tell me what is your purse color, or how it is? And she replied the correct answer. So I called her. I called another person also, and we entered to the boat. And I asked her, "This is your purse?" Yes. Okay, please open it and show me your ID. Okay, I will verify that is your photo. And she can prove that nobody touched her purse. Okay, and the problem is that she changed the salary of the husband for about, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000. So she was really with a lot of anxiety and affliction, okay, because that probably mean the expenses of the month, okay. So that's another example of, she was not, obviously she was afraid to lose, but she was with desperation to look what what she found. So, and I remember, there is a psalm, I can remember it is a 42, uh, when David said, oh, I am crying like siervo, like I can remember, it's not moose, it is like moose, okay, that is desesperated because of water, okay.
Deer. A deer pants for the water.
That here,
So
yeah, a
long.
deer, yes. So that is an affliction, because I don't know if you have seen any video about a deer looking for water. No, I invite you to look at that. Okay, uh, and people is hearing from far away that deer is desesperating because of water.
Wow.
Okay, he's afflicted because he doesn't have water. So my soul is with
Long,
affliction for
longing.
you, Lord. Yeah, because I need your presence.
Yes.
So when you are afflicting your soul, it's because you are afflicting not because you have problems. No, it's not afflicted because you are with a disease, or you are not joy, you don't have joy, or someone is persecuting you. No, it's about that you are afflicted because you don't feel the presence of God, because you need to know that God is among you, because you need his to feel his presence, right? So uh, it's a little bit different, because yes, on Yom Kippur we can fast, but if we are not really afflicted, my soul, because it's very easy, okay, we are one soul with God, okay, then he decides to send our soul to this physical world, okay, so there is, I can say, like a separation, okay, so now we need to connect again with God, and on that day is very special, because Israel as one is looking for God, okay, so it's not about God forgive me, and so I am afflicted because I want to avoid the punishment. No, it's about God. I need to reconnect my soul with yours. Okay, so that is something that we were saying about that this Tuesday.
But we
Uh,
don't only do it on Yom Kippur. Would you say that this was
no.
because for us as believers, it's an everyday thing?
Yes.
Is Yom Kippur more the day of a communal understanding?
Yeah. Yeah, it's more communal, but you know that the point is there is something that is really true, okay, can you imagine if the world at the very same time, okay, can say we want to live in peace, everybody, not, and they stop, okay,
Yeah.
sample of that is when is commemorating, like these days ago, like I don't can remember, it was this week or last week, when we celebrate the Holocaust day.
Memorial Yom HaZikaron.
So Yom HaZikaron. So on that day, when the siren start to sound, everybody at Israel stop. And if you were working, you were driving, no matter what you were doing, you stop. Okay, probably only on hospitals they still on labor, for example, when somebody is coming to this world, they cannot stop,
Right.
but 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 I think on that special day, Israel become one,
Right.
okay, so the power of that moment, it's amazing. I can see the videos. I never been there to prove that, but only to look at the videos and start to to hear how the cities are shutting down and everything is in peace, quiet. That grants you peace. So, can you imagine uh, what will happen if Israel at the very same time could at Yom Kippur afflict their soul? Wow, the answer from God will be very great.
Right.
The problem is that many persons at Israel, probably on Yom Kippur, they're only fasting. Okay. So it's like a diet day.
Right.
Okay. So um, many people is like on many holidays, people going to the beach, for example, people is at home looking some series or some TV shows, whatever, uh, or they are just resting and not trying to look inside them. So, but when we afflict our soul, it is when I can see that the power of God. Okay. Um, in if Yeshua said uh, that if at least two persons are in common will, okay, they can see the God's answer. Okay. Um, Obviously, eh, there is some controversial things about it because you know people can start to say, "Oh, God destroyed this person," or can you imagine that? So that is why popular opinion is so important. Okay, because there's a lot of people thinking the very same way at the very same time.
Yeah, it's like
And
what we said at what God said at the Tower of Babel. Anything they put their minds to do, they can do. That's why we have to set
yes,
yeah, but they were doing it for the wrong direction.
yes.
Yeah.
So, so that is something that can you imagine? You know, the power of God, and probably is I'm going to a gray zone, okay,
You're going to what?
but to a gray zone,
Yes.
okay, okay, but uh, this is not like a TV show, okay, because I have seen many TV shows on that, but by I have experience when I used to be Christian, okay, that God show some miracles by healing persons. That is not, I can say, is God operating there? I'm not saying that obviously they are not looking to the Trinity. Probably they are thinking about God. And when everybody is praying for someone, okay, then God, that is like a communal energy, okay. Everybody is on the same moment, uh, trying to that God answers a healing of a person. And I can tell you, I saw many persons that were healed by God. Not, I'm not saying that that is the only way that God can heal. No, but surely I saw and I witnessed, okay, person who were really bad and they have diseases on the skin, and after praying, how God healed them. Okay. So in that is on the very same moment, okay, I saw persons that that they were restored some muscles. Okay. In and then in that is something that Yeshua taught also. Okay. Yes, we believe as Moshe and the Torah said. Okay. If someone comes and start to heal everybody and start to show miracles and things like that, but it's against the Torah, do not follow. I'm
Right.
agree on that. But he never said, okay, Jewish people or Israelites, don't practice the unity to pray and ask something for God, like heal persons. Okay. So I think that sometimes people, you know, the other community sometimes, especially in Judaism, I have seen that the people really don't pray. Okay. They follow Sidur,
Right. Right.
but that is that that probably we are stopping that also the manifestation of God through pray, because on pray there is a lot of power, because we are confessing something with our mouth, and by the mouth God create the whole universe.
Right.
Okay, so it's something that we probably do not have to be fear about that. And when there is opportunity to pray together, we must have to do. Okay, for example, probably just your husband and you, or your friend and you, or I don't know, but more than one people start to pray, for example, for peace, okay, in the world. Start to pray uh, for a healing a person, for getting new job for someone, okay. That is thinking out of the box, probably, because that has a lot of power. And we can say, oh, but God already knows everything.
Right.
Why we should confess? Okay, why we should um, say a word that we can hear? Okay, he knows my thoughts, so I'm gonna send energy in my thoughts to that person. No, so because the power on that is when you express by your mouth, you hear, and there is another witness who is hearing also. So when you are confessing something like, God, we pray to heal this person, okay,
Tension.
okay, so you are confessing something from your inner part, but at the same time you are blessing your own, your your own person. So that's why on Shabbat, when we are at the Siddur, and we are not just we are shouting, we are celebrating the Shabbat service, then we are hearing, okay, because we are blessings with all the prayers there. We are blessing ourselves, okay. Yes, we could be in quiet, everybody, and just look to the Siddur, and that's it.
Right.
But it's not a very same power. So, um, so it's something that we need to practice, okay, to pray, and also, uh, for example, in the list of the person we were praying is a person, okay. Um, he he died, um, and unfortunately, but prior he died. Uh, I this is the power. That's why I'm telling this. I remember that Eduardo Marchena, he was on the list. He got an operation of the column, and then he got an infection on the hospital in a bacteria, and so he could not resist that, got pneumonia, and then he died. But prior he died, the her his wife lost, like, I don't know, 12 years ago, her daughter, okay, because of cancer. Um, After that, she said, I don't want to know nothing about God. I don't want to hear nothing about God. On that moment when she lost her daughter. And she is the uh, grand uh, granddaughter of Coronel Castellanos, who saved more than 40,000 Jews during the Second World War.
Oh,
She had on the like is like a medal from Israel on her house. Okay,
right.
because he was considered just between the nation among the nations.
Mhm.
So um so she said, I don't want to know nothing about God. I don't want to hear nothing about God. And I remember s- a day we were talking with her husband, and he told me, you know, I believe in God. I'm Catholic, but my wife doesn't believe in nothing. Okay, because she left our daughter, and she's angry against God. Well, when 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 her husband Eduardo was very bad at hospital, she asked for us for praying. When there is a person who really is angry with God, to ask, uh, 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 because the soul is afflicted. Okay, and 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 then we start to pray. But I was dreaming, and when I was dreaming, I received a voice from God. Okay, that told me Eduardo was improving on that day. Okay, on those days, uh, and he told me when a soul has complete his task on earth, he needs to return to me. Eduardo needs to return to me. And I remember that on that dream, I took her hands, okay, and said, okay, Mrs. Marchena, uh, God has told me that your husband has already done what he had to done in this life. He is he already rectified his soul. That's it. And then I wake up. Okay. Um and you know, and during the on that day, Evelyn told me, you know, Eduardo has improved. He's now awake, and he's better. And I told her my dream. Okay. And I said, I don't know, but Eduardo, for me, he will live because I've heard that. And honestly, everybody was like, we don't believe you. But but that is the power of confession. I mean, I didn't want he lived. Uh, and I said, God, if you want to save him, thank you. And if you want to take him to your presence, thank you. So I just leave it. 3 days after he died, okay, he passed away. So when we received the notice, the news that he has passed away, it just came to my mind the dream, okay, and I felt peace, and I said, "Thank you, Lord, because I know he left, and now Maura is asking for praying." So she's now improving. Okay, she's now improving, but but the point is that she's reconnecting with God, and my wife is sending her some some verse from the Bible and some devotionals that that are related to the sorrow. Okay, to this morning moments. So, and she thanked because my wife was like, I don't know if to send it to her. I mean, she doesn't want to hear from God, but now she's completely changing her mind. Um, I asked for praying, Mauras, because you know she's depressed right now. Um, but at the end, um, what I want to say that there is a power in our mouth. Sometimes also we have been praying for person who really feel bad. You know, I remember that one day we were at home of this person already died. It's not that I have something. I'm not the angel of death, okay? But you know, he was very bad of health. Okay, he didn't want to eat nothing. He didn't accept nothing from anyone. And I remember I went to his home because there is a mitzvah that we need to go to the person who has a disease. And in this portion talks about that when it says love your neighbor, okay, love your brother. So we went to visit him, and I took some food, okay, to his house, and and he could barely wake up, okay, but he was really bad. And I remember um, her wife uh, asked me to pray for him. Okay, they don't believe like I believe, honestly. So I said, okay, let's pray for Mr. Victor, and we pray. Now the miracle is that he start to eat on that day. Her his wife was so happy that after 5 days he could eat something. Okay, so in he could stand up and have a conversation with some other person with a good mentality. Okay, because of the lack of the food, he he was only sleeping and not recognizing persons. He recognized me, and we were talking about 2 hours and a half. Okay, so there is a power. Okay, God gave us. God is the healer. Okay, and we could be instruments. Okay, we could be instrument uh, to 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 make His will in this world, to make it better. Okay, so that is what I wanted to add.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mauricio. Miriam, you have anything you want to
Mhm.
add?
I love what you said, Mauricio. So much of it is so important. I was just thinking that when you ended your thing, you said, um, whose values am I imitating? And you know, it's like sometimes um people could experience or things could happen that's like healings, but who's doing the healing? Because I remember in you know, people involved in a lot of things in the New Age, even in Satanism, supposedly. There have been healings. What about the Santorini and all these healings that happen? Like good things could sometimes happen with evil intention, you know. So it's so important that um that's not just healing or everything, even fasting, you know, when you fast or whatever, you know, even Yom Kippur, how many of us were more concerned about how hungry we were, and when the breaking of the fast was coming and you could smell the food being warmed up, you know, to break the fast, everyone is like, oh, you know, and everyone's more thinking about their hunger than they are about really afflicting their souls. so much has to do with our motivation. Like, it is true that sometimes fasting helps us to get closer to God. But when we divide the spirit and the body and we become consumed with hunger, sometimes it's a good thing because it brings us closer to God. But when it doesn't do that, so many people insist on fasting, but they're not even sure if they believe in God or not. I have an old friend and she fasts all the time, but she doesn't even know if she believes in God. But somehow I guess it links her to the Jewish community, or maybe somewhere whatever, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But so much has to do with intention, and that's why we have to be careful when there are healings. Like, what is the source? I remember with the spiritualist church. I mean, so much of came from that, or people who prophesy, and it does come true. Mediums, so a lot of things they say do come true.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's power in the spiritual realm, but it's not always from God. But anyway, that was something, even when you said, whose values am I imitating? A lot of people think the world now, with its many paradigms, are free. Like, we're becoming freer and freer. I can become, if I'm a woman, I could become a man, or I can become a woman if I'm free. I can choose my own expression and blah blah blah. And it's not freedom at all. So, like, who are we imitating? Whose values? If it's not from God, I mean, then whose values are we imitating? And that's what's, when people tell, like, when I've talked to, I have a friend in Boston, and and she thinks, why can't people do whatever they want? If they want to express themselves this way, why not? And the only argument I can't say, from her point of view, yeah, you can say why not? But if you don't have God, that nothing matters, in a sense. From her point of view, why not?
Exactly.
But without God, you could say anything. There are people who dress like as dogs and cats. They're furries, they're called them. And I cannot believe that people take them seriously. They start to identify with a cat, so they don't think they're human anymore. And these people have shown up at marches in different places, and you can't criticize them. Like, that's the the world we're living in now. You cannot, you know, you could be whatever you want. You could be a woman if you're a man, and I could be Jesus Christ. It used to be when you went to the hospital, the psychiatric ward, and people were there and they say, I'm Jesus Christ, and they were locked up. Now, oh, you could say, I'm a cat. I identify as a cat, you know. Anyway, so it's so important to see the source of your beliefs, because things are not just black and white. A lot of good comes from things. I mean, we don't know. We see people in the middle of their journey, so we don't know what's flowering inside and what's about to come out. But it's so important to understand what drives us and what drives people. Like, I know my brother, I love him, and I believe he's really is a good soul. But he has a gay daughter, and he's fine with it now. He just wants her to be happy. But at some point, like, I don't, we don't talk about it anymore. But unless you have the common belief in the source of all life, it's very hard to talk to people, because people think you're evil because you believe that a transgender person is doing wrong, and they think, you're an evil person. Why can't they're finding happiness for the first time in their life? I said, but so I decide people can't receive what you're saying unless there is some way, something in common. You can't relate, you can't speak to people about certain things. You can speak about it if you have to, but I mean, close friends, like I can't speak to or brother about his daughter. We just know, I can pray for her and I pray for them, but I cannot speak anymore to
Yeah.
them.
And that's our biggest challenge, is to know when we can speak to the people who are close to us. When I see things that, let's say, my granddaughters are doing, mind goes totally against, um, uh, like honoring their mother or honoring their grandmother, and what my struggle is when I see that and I don't say anything, I think, am I being like Aaron or like Eli, who didn't discipline their children?
Yeah.
And I have to remember, they're not my children, and my adult children now, they're adults. And it's just, it's so hard to know what to do.
But sometimes I find with that,
Please pray for me for that.
yeah, for
I
sure.
thank God that I can ask, people who know God, and we can talk about it, because immediately I want to jump in and I want to say something. But I have to remember, there has to be the humility to
But
receive.
that's what I was going to say. Sometimes we want to say things. If you really look at it, it's often ego. It's selfish. I want to say it because it's right. It becomes self-righteous. Like I want to say it like to my niece who's gay. Okay. I want to say it because it purges myself that I've to see God. I've told her, but it's not really, it's selfish because I'm doing it for myself. If it has nowhere to land at all, I had to just say it to my brother, and to her, I said, only because that's what I believe. I'm not saying it to try and make you change and blah, blah, blah. And that's it. It's finished. With no more discussion. Of course, she knows she can talk about it with me, whatever. But there comes a point of a thin line between selfishness and doing the right thing. And we have to say the right thing from the right spirit, not just because I have to say it or else before God, I better say it, not even caring whether they receive it or not.
Well, sometimes it's out of fear. I'm afraid of the consequences for them.
No, I understand your motives are good. I'm just saying sometimes where it's going to land. Like I've told David and my niece, my brother and my niece, where I stand on this on homosexuality, and
And
they know where I stand, but there's nowhere else to go with it.
No, but also, there, when I'm dealing with my own family, they are supposedly believers. Read the Bible, they read what God is saying, and yet what I see with religious people is if, like I've seen this in other families as well. Well, they keep kosher, so they're holy, they're better, but they can, that's what I said in the message, but they can um, say something that's, it's hard. I don't want to hear, we're being recorded and I don't want to talk about my family, but I really need help in knowing what to do. So
I think you need to pray for an opportunity that's right.
the right heart.
No,
Yeah.
not only for you, but when it's the right time.
Yes.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Maybe alone, with your daughter or whatever, when it's the right time.
Exactly. And you can pray for me for that, because my heart is that they would walk with God and not be, this whole idea of kadosh. It's so important. I remember Rabbi talked about it all the time. These words in Hebrew, holy, and here it was a holy prostitute, the
Yeah.
same word. So we have to be really careful when we say, "Oh, I'm holy. I'm doing the right thing." Well, we may not be so holy. Anyway,
Also, in the half Torah portion, when they said something about, well, what's going to happen in the future when Israel will return, and they say they may possess the remnant of Edom.
Yeah,
That's the Gentiles. So they're talking even there about, right, the remnant of
exactly.
Edom
Yeah.
is the remnant who return.
Through Leviticus, we're going to see, and in Numbers, we're going to see everything that God gave us was for us and for the Ger, the stranger among us. The remnant of Edom is like the Ruth.
Yeah, but I don't remember seeing that before. Today is the same. I said, wow, it's even there.
Yeah.
This was not in Leviticus.
No, this was an Amos.
Yeah,
Haftorah was an Amos.
yeah.
In the end,
Remnant of Edom.
yeah. And in the end times, it said, whatever that's going to look like, the 10 Gentiles will cling to the tzitzit of one Jew and say, show me your God. The thing about religion is that religion divides us. It's not like you were talking before about it in one moment how everybody stopped in Israel and they stopped and they were remembering. Sadly, I don't know if they were remembering God, they were remembering the Holocaust, but that whole idea of everyone will stop in one moment when God does something so tremendous and they will see God. It's like so amazing to think about. That's the hope that we have, that the craziness that we see going on in the world will have an end one day. But it's hard for us living it now to uh, to know what to do, at all times. Anyway, I'm so tired I can't even think anymore.
Hi, Moshe.
Moshe's here. Who else is here? Good to see you. How are you doing, Moshe?
I'm doing well, mommy.
I'm glad to hear
Only
that.
thank you. Only that I wanted to comment something
I
about
can't
our
hear
request.
very well.
It's hard to hear you.
Could you raise the volume?
I can try to raise the volume. If you turn off your picture, you'll have more data for your sound.
Now, can you hear me?
A little better, but speak louder.
Okay. Now, I first of all appreciate Mauricio for the message he has uh, told us,
Yes, he's
and
appreciating you, Mauricio, for what you said.
yes. So he talked about to affliction, and that is generally fasting. So I was busy noting some benefits of afflicting ourselves before God. And my first point was uh, being before God or recognizing the Lord is present. So it gives us morale and then energy to feel very close to our Elohim. Then point number two was getting to Elohim. When we afflict ourselves, for sure we can get very close to our Elohim. And when you make Elohim your friend, it will be easy for someone to pray or say or request for whatever he or she wants when he is near the Lord. Then the other point is source of confession and repentance. you know, when you afflict yourself, it will depend on what you need God to do for you. Maybe if you want Him to maybe forgive you after maybe doing anything wrong, we are all human. You may not know whether you're sinning. So when you realize you've made a sin or you've sinned against God, you confess, and then it gives you time to reconcile with God. Then the other point is source of healing. When you truly get very close to Elohim, you will be healed. Let's assume you want, maybe you have an infection or a disease, or your friend, you can pray for that friend of yours in this process of fasting or afflicting yourself, and you can get healed. Then the next point is about casting evil.
Just hold
Casting
on a second.
evil spirit.
Hold on one
Yes.
second. It's like Mauricio said, he had a friend, Eduardo, who they prayed for his healing, and he had a dream that God said that that Eduardo had completed everything that he needed to do on this planet, and now his time was finished. So we may pray that people are healed, and they may not be healed because that's not God's will. So it's not always that we pray for healing that we will be healed. And there are people, I remember with Rav Shaul, he said he prayed and prayed and prayed, and this was the thorn in his flesh. He was just going to have to live with it. Sometimes we just have to live with something, and there's nothing we can do. Remember, there were last week, I think, Mauricio, you spoke about the 10 lepers, and Yeshua healed them all. And he told them to go to the temple to bring their offerings, and only one went. And I think he wasn't even an Israelite. I think he was a Samaritan, and he was the only one who truly appreciated what God had done. Just because God does a miracle and heals doesn't mean it's going to draw them closer to God. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're praying for healing.
Oh, thank you, Mommy, for that clarification. But again, it may depend on the situation. For example, if maybe someone or a friend gets an accident, we need to pray for that person.
Absolutely.
However, yes, however, my dad, when he was still living, he was teaching me how to pray, and he told me one word which I will never.
Are you still there? I think we lost you, Moshe. We can't hear you anymore. I think Uganda is very far away from us. Yeah,
Be done
sometimes. We lost you. You're back now.
to your plan, Lord.
But we didn't hear
Oh,
what you
sorry.
said. Moshe, we didn't hear you because your data went out.
Oh, okay. Let me pardon myself. I was like, my dad taught me when he was teaching me how to pray. There is one point he said that we need to request God to make things according to His plan, and it brings out the other idea that you spoke of, that sometimes we may pray for any sick person for healing, but at the end that person can lose. It say, God, do it according to you, or according to your will.
I'm sorry, Moshe. You're
Am I
going.
now clear?
We can't hear you. You're going in and
I'm sorry, maybe my network.
yeah, it's probably the network. Maybe what you can do is you can send me
Can you hear?
on WhatsApp, and I'll send it out to everybody.
I text you.
You can send me a text on WhatsApp, and I will text it to everybody so they can hear what your father's, because I think it would be worthy.
All right, please.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for your input. I cannot think. I am just so extremely exhausted right now.
Thank you for your message, Peggy. I
You're
thought we were going to hear the rabbi.
Yes, I did. Well, I started by doing that. And then I took his message and I was adding to it and changing it. So I said, okay, I'm going to speak. But a lot of it was based on what he spoke about.
Well, it was very good, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you're tired.
I'm going to have a real Shabbat Shalom today.
Wow.
It's
Well, it's not raining anymore, but
a beautiful
it's
day.
cold, but nice.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to just close and say, everybody, just rest in him. Let us prepare ourselves to just always be ready to humble ourselves before him and to listen to him, because he does speak with us. He does guide us. And it's a marvelous thing that we have. So I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom for
Shabbat
everybody.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shalom.